now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Hotep Habarigani to my Afro Studies people and to the professors and the teachers and the students and the pupils and the academics that may be looking at this missive on this day. And let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never ever goodbye, because I always find goodbyes traumatizing. I said I found goodbyes traumatizing. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church right here in the city of Los Angeles, and we are worshiping with our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, which is pastored by my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Hollandes. And they have really responded to me this week, as I've seen they've had a bout of sickness, but their administrations have really helped me get up off my sick bed. And I thank them. I thank the Lord for them, and I thank you for praying for me. This offering that you are viewing is entitled It's Time, and it is a social justice offering because of the fact that we don't live in a bubble, and you cannot practice Christianity in a vacuum. You're going to have to be out here with the rest of us, dealing with the good and the bad, the folks you like and the folks you don't like, the in-house and the unhoused, the people in the jails and the folks not in the jails that ought to be in there. So as we do this particular broadcast on today, when I left my home, they were minutes away from revealing the body cam footage of how the police assaulted and brutalized and ultimately killed Tyree Nichols there in Memphis, Tennessee. And that is a lot of irony there, because that's where Dr. King was killed as well. And it looks like this systemic racism is a poison that until we actually redo the police procedures, we'll still keep getting the same result. And this is why we have to continually to state that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Those black officers were as brutal and as inhumane, and as their own police chief said, they were just as heinous in the way that they dealt with this black man as any white police officer could have been. He could have been no more brutal than Derek Chauvin on George Floyd. And so it's a systemic thing. It's not a matter of color. Once the person becomes a policeman, he changes his nature, he changes his attitude, he changes his outlook. And we have to be mindful of that, because like I said, how true Paul said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. The police power is a principality. It is also a power unto itself. Every police officer can view himself or herself as a principality, and can administer summary judgment, summary executions at any moment. And that's a lot of power to have in the hand of a few people riding around in cars, meeting themselves in bars and saloons, high-fiving, drinking, and talking about the day's activities. And remember that they always justify their existence by how many people they arrest, by how many people they detain, or how many people that they drag into the station. And this man, according to Tyree Nichols, wasn't, according to even the chief of police, we wasn't doing nothing wrong. but they brutalized him. They pulled him over, snatched him out of his car. He hadn't done anything, and things went downhill from there. And they talk about de-escalation, but there was no effort to de-escalate. It was total escalation. Now, how many people can ride in these cars? I imagine there must have been at least 2 or 3 cars there. And things just went downhill from there. Well, you can do the scenario. You see your 2 partners got this black man on the ground. Are they trying to talk to him and everything? He talking rough, he talking back. So everything just de-escalated, and they started trying to tase him. What they tasing him for? He hadn't done nothing. He had no criminal record. They wasn't pulling him over for a criminal record. And come to find out, this was a special unit that had been deployed on Memphis, Tennessee streets to try to make an impact on the guns that were available. And so that's why they were, that was their justification, rather, in the Memphis Police Department. And of course, whether you know it or not, or realize it or not, police departments have to justify their existence by the amount of crime and the number of arrests. That's why they always try to go down in the black neighborhoods and get high crime and create crime where there might not be no crime if the police didn't come down there. And as a result, they keep their numbers high, and to make the people say, well, the police are doing a good job, we need them. Remember, it was a Los Angeles SWAT team member in a conversation with a gang truce brother that said that I get all of these hours of overtime, and I put my kids through school, and he didn't want to see no gang truce. He didn't want to see no gangs stop shooting at each other, because that was how he was making his living. That's how he was paying off his house. And so you have to put 2 and 2 together and see, do you really need all of this firepower and all of this gadgetry that the police are given and that they manifest daily on the streets? I mean, the police departments are just bristling with gear, offensive gear. And they like to use that offensive gear. No sense in having that kind of gear and don't use it. And that's the thinking. And who do they want to use it on the most? Why, black folks. Who is the least protected? Black folks. Who are the ones that are down the most? Why is black folks. And so when you deal with police culture, which comes up straight out of slavery, remember the original plantation owners hired certain white fellas in the neighborhood to keep watch over the slaves. Make sure they had to call what they call slave patrols at night. Make sure the slaves didn't escape or didn't go to other plantations to see people and the like. And if a slave did escape, then of course the slave hunters. That's where you get the bounty hunter. That's where it all began. All began in slavery, and it is still going on at this hour. That's why the viciousness and the brutality and the cruelty and the inhumanity and the heinousness with which these 5 officers beat Tyree Nichols was so brutalized, because they were taught that in school. They were taught that in training, and they were taught how to do a vicious takedown, hard takedown. But they were also taught how to de-escalate, which didn't happen in this case. Whatever other officers, it says there were as much as 10 officers on the scene. They didn't try to de-escalate. They did not try to intervene. They did not, which since the George Floyd law, even though it hasn't been signed yet, most police departments have a code now where if things are getting out of hand, that one officer, some officers can stop the other officers, even though that may not always be the most advantageous or readily available mode of conduct. But somebody can try to de-escalate it. Say, come down, stop back up there, boys, as you were, brethren. And someone can pull rank and say, we've done enough. We've been vicious enough. We've been hard enough. He's compliant. And everything. So that even after this man was in handcuffs and was beaten, they didn't get him any kind of aid. And that is where the other charges are coming up against the fire department, the EMTs that were also on the scene, that they failed in their duty to render aid to a person who had not been convicted, even though he was had been brutalized, but they had an obligation to render aid to this man. Matter of fact, the police had an obligation to render aid to this man, but they kept setting him up so that he would not fall over, even though they knew that he had been so brutalized and so injured by them. But of course, they were in that high fever, that high dudgeon that you get into when you think your team is winning, and they were having themselves a good time reliving in their mind, reviewing in their mind the strokes and the blows and the strikes and the taser, how they tased the poor man. And it wasn't just the tasing. Evidently, from the picture that his mother took of him in the hospital bed, there was some blows that they administered and some kicks. And you can see how fast that police officer put him on the ground and kicked him, that things went downhill pretty quick. And I guess the other officers coming up, seeing this first officer kicking the man, then naturally they come up and did the kicking and did some brutalizing and did some tasing and told the man, well, you better comply. And things just didn't turn out as they should have. Now, the justification for these units was to stop the proliferation of guns in a community, and which would mean the Saturday night specials and the other non-registered weapons that sometimes showed up in crime scenes, and so they would actually supposed to get be getting these type of weapons off the streets, and so they had carte blanche, as it were, to pull over any car. And they pulled this Mr. Tyree Nichols over, and he ain't had no gun. He had a knife. He was not doing anything, and he wound up dead because of the officers' overreaction, or the fact that he asked them, "What did I do wrong?" Well, that's the wrong question to ask a policeman. Don't ever ask the policeman, what did I do wrong? Just be as compliant as you can, and if you can, get the badge number, get the name, and all that kind of good stuff. But never ask them, what did I do wrong? Because that is like a red flag in front of a bull. That just ticks them off and takes them to the next level. And as I said, it didn't matter if it was black or white, the man got beat to death. And that is a systemic issue. You got to be able to stop the man from beating you to death that's trying to help you. And how do you do that? You do that in his training. You do that in his education. You do that in his field work. Male or female, it's the same outcome if they feel that they have carte blanche and that the law is behind them. They were abused and harassed. Look at the case of Sandra Bland. She arrested just on a traffic ticket, but wound up dead down there in Prairie View, where she was supposed to be going down there to get a job, but she wound up dead because she sashed off at the police officer, and the police officer had the power, and he used the power, and when they got her down in the jailhouse, she just disappeared. That's what happened. They can put all the fancy writing and words on it that they will. They killed Sandra Bland down there just in Prairie View, Texas. She was a mouthy black woman. They don't want you to mouth off to them. Even though this man, Tyree Nichols, did not even mouth off as what was said in the Sandra Bland case, he still got the same treatment. He was beat to death. As we say, we don't wrestle against principalities. You see, you wrestle against white folks. You wrestle against black folks. As Mr. Blackwell was just saying before we started this show today, out here in California, we had an Asian man kill up a bunch of Asians at a dance studio. And if the other location where he went to if the people there had not wrestled that gun away from him, he'd go kill some folks up there. There is a hatred apparent and is obvious in our world, and it has an infectious rate of disease. It's called what it is, a pathology. And where you hate your own people, Asian hating Asians, Pacific Islanders hating Pacific Islanders. My goodness, they were supposed to be the model demographic, and they're killing up one another. And so there is an epidemic of these principalities, these powers, these rulers of the darkness, these spiritual wickedness in high places, and the rulers of the darkness of this world. And that darkness, the rulers of the darkness of this world, takes us all the way through the upper echelons of the gun culture, the gun sales, the gun shops, and the like, because a lot of this killing would not be going on if it was not being condoned at the highest levels and encouraged at the highest levels. And we are going to have to reckon with our own demons, because they are leading us to destruction. And systemically, yes, it is a system. And is it rooted in racism? It's certainly rooted in hatred. And that hatred is rooted in racism. The late Howard Thurman, did a meditation on hatred one time. He says hatred will destroy its own self because it has to hate. It has to have an object. And even if an object turns out to be itself, it will turn on its own self, as history has witnessed in too many tragic cases. You find that the Holocaust people were turning on each other, and to ingratiate themselves with the Germans, well, they were harmful harming their own people. And before the Holocaust, it could not have been conducted as successfully as it was had the rich Jews not looked away when they saw their poorer brethren being persecuted and attacked. But they said, it's not me, so they looked the other way. And then by the time they began to say something about it, of course, it was too late. So hatred doesn't care who it hurts once it takes over, and that's why you see these confusing killings of persons who are on the same side, but yet you kill them. It's because of the hatred that's in men's hearts. Howard Thurman, as I said, in his book, The Jesus and the Disinherited, has a meditation on that very fact, and that's why Dr. King was so quick to say, don't let anyone pull you so low as to make you hate them, because like you said, once hatred takes over, yes, it must always have a focus of an object, but hatred will destroy its own self. And we have seen endless examples. I could pull more out of the clouds if I would, but I will proceed on with my meditation. And my thoughts and prayers are like with everybody else, with Mrs. Nichols, Tyree Nichols' mother, and his father, and his stepfather, and the entire Nichols clan and the family, because they have suffered a great loss that was unnecessary, but for the fact that we wrestle not against principalities, but against powers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. It's the Apostle Paul who introduces the word principalities, and of course we know originally it dealt with the angelic ranks and the angelic realms that are we recognize are present, that do God's will. And we have a glimpse of these angels when the devil disputed with Michael about the body of Moses, and Michael couldn't rebuke the devil until he got permission from God. But we realize that there are ranks of angels, principalities of angels, and powers of angels. When in the book of Revelation, when God said, "Hurt not the grain until I have sealed God's people in their forehead," that there are powers, in other words, that can be unleashed upon the earth, which we have not yet recognized or realized, because God holds them back in His treasuries. But also, it is not limited to the angelic realm, because the manifestations of these things are seen in our normal, everyday corporations, companies, organizations, businesses, whether it be LLCs or incorporated, masquerading as LLCs. And what all the LLC means, I can do you wrong, and you can't do nothing about it, because I'm an LLC, I'm limited liability. And these things, organizations are principalities unto themselves, and they do much mischief. But it's, of course, not limited to corporations. You can naturally see how the financial systems have benefited from slavery, have benefited from racism, have benefited from redlining, have benefited from all of the segregation laws that were put in place that hindered blacks from owning in the suburbs, and actually hindered blacks from even being included in the Social Security for the first 20 years of its existence. It started in 1935, and blacks were not permitted into the Social Security Administration until 1954. That's a long time. But that's the way the principalities, the powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places, that's the way that has been operated. and it is still operating. That is why the life expectancy of black people is 10 years less than the life expectancy of a white person, because we have not access to good medicines in time. For I know a long time, black folks used to just have to tread on water until they got old enough to get to 65 where they could go to the doctor, because we couldn't afford insurance, because it was just too high. And then for a long time, there were two healthcare systems in the United States of America. You had the white healthcare system, and you had the Negro healthcare system. The Negro couldn't go to the white healthcare system, and he had to go to the Negro healthcare system. All right. A lot of our entertainers, notable entertainers that got in car wrecks, if a white ambulance came out there and saw you on the ground, well, he had to call a black ambulance because he couldn't take you to the white hospital, and the black ambulance had to come out there and pick you up and take you to the black hospital. And by a lot of times, too much time was lost, and the person, of course, perished. And like I said, a lot of our entertainers left the world as a result of that type of segregation, because segregation was the law of the land. And as we were talking about today, the systemicness, how this poison, this evil of racism just goes on from generation to generation. Now, I'm sure not one of those 5 black men joined the police force thinking that they were going to go out and kill a bunch of black folks and kill this man as viciously as they did. I'm sure they didn't join the police force with that thought in mind. I'm sure their thinking was that I'm going to go out and do good. But what was their training? What was their preparation? Who were they exposed to? Who did they get their marching orders from? And who did they run around with? And these units that these special units, what was that? Who was the supervisor? Evidently they were supervising themselves because they were going around unchecked. And we see how that works out. You can't leave folks with great power unchecked, with no authority, with no limits, with nobody to come back and go behind you and call you to a task. And so when things go south, they go very south. Mr. Tyree Nichols should never have died. He should never have been stopped. And it looked like it was an ego thing from these police officers, that they said, we're going to subdue you, and we're going to arrest you, and we're going to handcuff you, and you ain't going to do nothing about it. And the poor man is dead now, and we are left to learn the lesson again about systemic racism and how it spills over and how it carries over. Remember, as I have always said and continue to say, on this sad day, and when we're hoping that the people in Memphis will not tear up the city, burn down the town, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, that we're going to have to come together as a people and just say that this racist system is one that must be changed, and start to make the changes now, rather than later. All right. And as I get out of here, remember, my thoughts and my prayers are with the family and with the city and Tennessee. And again, I tell you, as I always tell you, if you're working on a job and they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here. I love you. I'm praying for you. God bless you.